Brock keeps this up, if the offense keeps performing like this with him, if he keeps up this level of play and doesn't fall apart, doesn't have a straight up Brian Hoyer level collapse in the playoffs or Jimmy Garoppolo level collapse in the playoffs, will there even be a quarterback competition next year between him and Trey Lance?
Maybe in name, but it won't be much of a competition. I think, it wasn't Brock beat out Trey this year. Just he didn't get the job. I was there. I saw it. And then everybody who went to the preseason games, they saw that. I mean, what else are you going to evaluate? You got the practices and the games. Brock was better than Trey in camp, and he was better than Trey in the preseason.
To be fair, Trey was going against Fred. Right. To be fair, Trey was going up against Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and the starters, while Brock Purdy was going up against the third stringers. So it was hard to tell what
stringers.
True. So it was hard to know what you were seeing. But his numbers were certainly better than Trey's. That's true. Certainly,
and he moved the team.
He did.
And remember that one play? I mean, it's preseason, so it's a little foggy, and I forget which game it was. But didn't he operate the 2-minute drill kind of really effectively in one of those preseason games?
I believe he did.
So
here's the thing, though. I've never seen a real quarterback competition. There's so few reps. It seems like coaches would rather not split them up between starters. And also, it seems like they don't want the media and the fans to make it a spectacle and sort of decide the winner of the quarterback competition on their own. You know what I mean? It seems like I've never covered a quarterback competition, especially during the social media age. It seems like you're bringing a lot of attention to your team that coaches generally don't want. And again, if this is how Brock is operating the offense, he's operating exactly how Kyle wants him to operate it. He's putting up a lot of numbers. He's not making any money. Kyle gets all the credit. He's a genius. I just don't see why Kyle would change things up, especially when I don't think the locker room's begging for them to go back to Trey anyway.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the answer is he won't. But then the question is, what exactly are they going to do? Are they going to – because I don't know. I agree with you with things we've talked about in the past. Trey's value is not what it needs to be to even consider trading him. But I did make a list yesterday when I was filling in on 95.7 The Game on the quarterback needy teams, and there's a ton. There's a ton.
Well,
of
you
teams.
anticipated my next question.
7 or 8 for sure, and probably another 6 teams that may not stay with their guy and could be added to the quarterback mix. And there's Brady, there's Jimmy, there's 3 or 4 guys in the draft. So yeah, I think if the 49ers want to trade Trey Lance, there'll be a definite market for him.
Well, you anticipated my next question. If there is no quarterback competition and the Niners decide, in February that Brock Purdy is their starter, or if there is a quarterback competition and Lance loses it and they name Brock Purdy the starter in August, will they trade Trey? The question I'm asking the question. Last month I was like, no, it would be awful to do that. But there's another perspective. One, it would be the right thing to do for Trey. I mean, keeping him on the bench another year would really seriously jeopardize his career. And not only the right thing for him, if you're not committed to playing him and giving him an opportunity to develop, I don't know that he helps you. How much does he help you if he needs to play as a backup that you're only playing in practice? I guess those are 2 things. Also, the longer you keep him and you don't play him, doesn't his trade value go down? It's like the Jimmy Garoppolo. The longer you keep him without actually committing to playing him, the less you get. So if Brock's your guy, I don't see what keeping Trey another year does, unless you just want him to be a good backup, in which case, man, I don't think I'd be cool with that if I was Trey or his agent. I would be maybe privately trying to say, can you please trade me to someone that wants to play me?
I mean, that's the thing, too. It's all about timing, and it's all about communication. And this is where it's going to come down on Lynch to keep the communication lines open with Trey's agent. Let's say Brock plays great, and let's say they go to the Super Bowl and win it.
Right. That could very well happen.
Could happen.
He could be the Super Bowl MVP, Larry.
In his hometown at 23.
That's right.
But so
in which case, there's no quarterback competition. Let's be honest.
And even if he doesn't do that, even if he just wins 2 playoff games and loses in Philly because of circumstances, he's demonstrated he's the best quarterback they have, I think. Now, Trey, you could argue, didn't get enough time to demonstrate exactly what he is.
That is true.
So that's
that
fair.
Is true.
But based on what we've seen, there's no doubt that Brock's had the highest completion percentage. Brock does things that Jimmy and Trey don't do. So they're
The
really
question here
interesting.
isn't what should the Niners do. The question here is what do you think they will do?
Well, I think you have to have an open dialogue with the
Yeah.
agent and find out what they want, because what you
Yeah.
said before, Grant,
Yeah.
truer words have never been spoken. Trey Lance needs to play next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
I don't care where it is. Could be for
Yep.
Tampa, could be for anyone. He has to be on the field next year for
Yep.
him. And yet the 49ers have to play the best quarterback.
That's
and
right.
that's Brock Purdy. So then the question is, what's best for everybody? And that's where I think, the 49ers don't have a number one pick. I mean, I'm looking at this team going, what could make them a dynasty? Because they've got such great depth right now. They got great talent. What could truly get them to the next level? And I'm looking at that Notre Dame tight end, Michael Mayer. He's a superstar tight end. He's going to be picked in the 20s. And you can use Trey to get up in that pick and make that.
Or
pick.
Starting cornerback, or starting offensive tackle,
or starting corner, true number one, Clark Phillips,
Yeah.
Utah, something like that.
Yeah. Or a quarterback, whatever. There are premium players at premium positions you could get. Now, I don't know that you're going to get a first-round pick if you trade Trey Lance, but
I think you will because of the supply and demand. But
Okay,
you're thinking that.
Okay, I'm thinking top
the league
50
already doesn't feel strong.
I don't know. I'm thinking top 50 for sure. Top 50 for sure.
For sure.
For sure. Okay, and maybe top 30. If you only want him as a backup, and he's not happy with that privately, and you want to do right by him because honestly he's done right by. What has he done wrong? You're the one that drafted him. You're the one that put him in this weird situation. You're the one that sat him for a while. You're the one that's really put him behind the 8 ball in his career. If you don't want to just straight up ruin his career, maybe send him somewhere. You could get another backup quarterback. They just showed that they could get DTR from UC. I mean, there's a million. If you're looking for
Jake Haener from Fresno State.
Yeah, the experienced pro-ready quarterback who can be a backup, there's a million of those guys, and you just shown that you can draft them and develop them. And so it's something to think about. It's just
he's a very, very valuable player. It's like driving around town in a brand new, convertible Mercedes, and you got a brand new, Bentley, and it's just in the garage, and you just drive it on the weekends. It's like,
I just feel bad for Trey.
Do you really need the Bentley in the garage? Couldn't you just have a second car that was like maybe like a Jeep with like a bikini top or something? You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Do you need a $200,000 car in your garage? Probably not. I mean, do you need a guy who you traded 3 picks for to be your backup, and that and maybe you do because their quarterbacks get hurt all the time. But now it's also about the day that Trey, through his agent, says, I want to trade publicly, that means the communication broke down and he's not getting what he wants. And then his value really tanks because then you got to trade him at a loss. So I think the key is communicate, find out where they're at, make sure that you know where they're at, and then make a good decision that's best for everybody.
I just feel like Trey's a ramp-up quarterback. He's a project quarterback. That's the deal with him. He needs to play. And the Niners won't give him the opportunity. So it seems like maybe send him somewhere that's willing to give him the opportunity and replace him with a late-round pick who's pro-ready. Because the team is so good, if the quarterback has experience and is a good game manager, the team should elevate his play. I mean, they're doing it to an extent with Brock Purdy right now. He has a Pro Bowl weapon everywhere on the field. And until this last week, the best defense in the league. So maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe the Niners should just stay away from quarterbacks who need a few years of development from now on and just take guys who are ready and surround them with the best, cheap and ready, and surround them with the best team you can. Maybe that's their formula now. It's what Philly does. Their quarterbacks are cheap, very cheap.
I always thought it's interesting how the Niner fan base has reacted to this discussion too. It's like too soon for them, right? And it seems like the safe thing is like just our quarterbacks get hurt, hoard quarterbacks. Trey might be good. Don't trade Trey. But you know what? Trey has a chance to determine his own NFL career, and I think he's not Don Strock. He's not some career backup. It's like Tampa had Vinny Testaverde and Steve Young.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? They had to trade Steve Young. And that's the same thing. I think the Niners have 2 good young quarterbacks, and And if Brock can really settle in and potentially either go to the Super Bowl or win it, the locker room is going to look at you like you're crazy if you go to anybody else but him next year.
Yeah, here's the logic. If Brock Purdy is the franchise quarterback, and Lance's trade value drops the longer he sits, then the right move is to trade him as soon as possible. Is that correct? If I think those two things are true.
I think the right move is because you don't know Trey. We don't know Trey. Trey may absolutely be dead set on staying here. This is on Lynch. This is on Lynch. What does Lynch want? I mean, what does Trey want? And it's up to Lynch to talk to the family and talk to the agent and figure out. I mean, nobody did anything to anybody. Trey got hurt, and Brock got an opportunity, and he's running with it. And it looks like he's playing quarterback on a level that the other guys can't even get close to. So, I mean, you could have a competition if you want, but I can tell you right now that Brock's going to beat out those guys if it's a true open competition because he's more accurate.
And he'll have a playoff resume under his belt, and he runs the offense the way Kyle wants it run. It seems like what Trey could say, him and his agent could go to the Niners privately in the offseason and say, look, we never complained about anything. You sat him for the first year. He was a good soldier about it. You ran him between the tackles. He never complained about it. Now you want to make him the permanent backup behind Brock Purdy? Please. He's only been a good teammate here. Can you please trade him to someplace and not sabotage his career? Because it feels like at a certain point the Niners are trapping him, and it's not fair. And I hope that doesn't happen. So that's why I'm talking about this.
I think you can
in an ideal world, you keep him as a backup for 3 years, but it just doesn't feel right.
You lay your cards on the table and you say, hey, you know what? We know that your value isn't today what it's going to be because we really believe in you. That's why we drafted you. So if you want to stick it out for another year and maybe build your value off the bench, if Brock gets hurt, we absolutely want to have you here. And we obviously can afford both quarterbacks. You're both on rookie deals. It's all about you, Trey. Do you want to be here as the number two and take whatever opportunities and get groomed under Kyle and our system and our coaches and see where it goes? Or do you want to go somewhere new and have the job all to yourself and start? And whatever he says, you do. If he says, I want to stay, then you keep him. And then you say,
That's
in
true.
an ideal world for us, Trey,
That's true.
we'd like to have
keep
you and Brock be here this year. Brock be healthy and have a great year. You not play. And then in the off season, we'd like to trade you once your value is a little bit higher in the eyes of some people. And maybe it would be higher if he played spot duty or was impressive in the preseason. I don't know, but
maybe lower though. It's possible to be lower though. Or teams go, well, he hasn't played. Because again, it's not just is he not good. It's he hasn't played since 2019. He hasn't played consistently since 2019.
Grant, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. I talked to the former GM of the Dolphins and Saints, Randy Mueller. Randy Mueller said that he wouldn't have even had Trey on his draft board based on how little college film there was of him at North Dakota State. So there are NFL personnel people that believe that he was a totally unproven entity at the college level, and that's before the pro career and the injuries and sitting on the bench this year.
Yeah. And so people that feel that way are only going to feel more that way the longer he sits. So the Niners are in a very difficult spot. They got to make the right decision here because they could have a depreciating asset and they could be the ones ruining this. Or maybe they trade him. He ends up being great. Brock Purdy ends up being, you know what I mean? They got to really figure this out. It's very interesting.
It's high stakes poker.
Absolutely. Wave 9 Mystic says, Grant, the defense had multiple takeaways. Jimmy would have gotten field goals, but I'd credit the D for like 14 points. Credit to Brock, but the D is good. That is true. They did set up some scores. They absolutely did.
Kerry Hyder's got a terrific motor. Nobody knows who he is. He can play any spot on the defensive line. He's the smartest D lineman they have, and he's probably not even 100% or close to it. And he bats that ball into the sky, and Drake Jackson picks it off. That was a huge, huge play.